Welcome to LIBS 1810, Student Success for Higher Learning. Today we're going to be discussing Chapter 9 from the College Success textbook, which is about the social world of college. Most students focus just on their studies. However, participating in the social world at college can have many benefits to you, both in terms of learning about the Canadian society and also in terms of co-curricular activities that can help you when you are looking for a job. So let's take a look at the objectives. They are understanding why social interaction is such an important part of the college experience, developing new friendships on campus, improving communication skills for social interactions at all levels, knowing why and how to use online social networking, balancing your schoolwork and social life, resolving conflicts that may occur in social interactions, knowing what to do if you experience harassment and understanding what harassment is, understanding the many kinds of diversity found on campus, celebrating the benefits of diversity for all students, dealing with prejudice and discrimination, and finally, discovering the value of participating in organized campus groups and activities. So let's get started. There are many benefits to social interaction. Humans are social creatures. We need to be involved with other people. As this pandemic has taught us, being away from people leads to things like depression, anxiety, and numerous other mental health issues. So, some of the benefits, though, of being around other people is having a growing understanding of diversity among other people, and we'll discuss the diversity later on. You also get the emotional comfort of friendships. It helps you understand more who you are, and you also have a chance to meet new people and learn new things, both intellectually and emotionally. There are some key points to making new friends. So one of the things to remember is to be open to new people and new ideas. We often come from cultures that have certain biases against other cultures. So for example, after living in Japan for many years, I discovered that there is a bias against Korean and Chinese people among the Japanese. In North America, we have a bias against people of color and people who are Native North Americans. So you need to be aware that you have these biases and these possibly negative images or ideas of other cultures, and you need to be open to meeting these new people. Also, be aware that there are many different ways that we can learn new things. So we may learn from someone how to knit, or we may learn some computer skills from someone else. We can also learn things like art. We can learn an appreciation for music from other people. But one of the things you have to be aware of is you need to be aware that you only have a certain amount of time in every day. And of course, your studies take priority. So you need to be selective in what you get involved in. It's also important to not pretend to be somebody else. Be yourself. And make an effort to get to know the people who are around you. And once you are a friend or you've developed a friendship, be a good friend. Be very considerate of the other person. Now, if you are shy and you feel uncomfortable about approaching new people, especially when you're first starting a new program or you're meeting new classmates, try speaking one-on-one with people. And one of the easiest ways to get people to talk is to ask them about themselves. It's always a great idea to do this and listen to what they have to say. Because even if you are a shy person and you ask someone else about themselves, the other person will walk away saying, wow, that person's a great conversationalist. When you are making friends with people, it is important to listen and to communicate effectively. And when we listen, you need to remember that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we should be listening more than we are talking. But when we're listening, we need to actively listen to someone else. We need to pay attention to what they're saying. Often when we are having a conversation, instead of really listening to what the other person is saying, we often are thinking about what we want to say in response to that. So try to avoid doing that. You also want to ask the other person questions. Find out more about them. Watch their body language as well. If they seem to be closing up, maybe your questions are too personal. Also, when you are communicating, it's important to show the other person that you are listening. Things like, really? Can you repeat that? These are really good because we're actually giving the other person feedback and we're showing them that we are taking an active interest in what they have to say. Now, when it is our time to speak, we want to make sure that we are being as effective as possible. And especially when we are in a situation where we may not agree with the other person. So you want to be honest, but not critical. So for example, if you meet somebody who has different political views than you do, you can simply say, I don't agree, or I disagree, but I respect your opinion. You don't want to say things like, that is the dumbest idea I've ever heard, or I can't believe that you believe that. You also want to look for some common ground. Where do you have similar interests or ideas? Where are your values the same? You want to also avoid sarcasm and irony, unless you know somebody really well. And even humor is something that we have to be very careful about because humor is very cultural and someone may not understand our sense of humor. So you don't want to offend people by using sarcasm or irony or humor until you get to know them fairly well. Another thing to do is to remember that if someone questions you, it's better to be honest and assertive than to be passive. So if someone says, what is your view of Justin Trudeau? If you know that person really likes Justin Trudeau, you don't want to say, oh, he's an idiot. But you can say, I'm not very fond of him, instead of saying, well, I don't know. Also, you want to make sure that you are choosing your conversations wisely. Just because somebody wants to have a conversation with us doesn't mean that we necessarily have to have it then and there. We can ask them if we can talk to them later. Part of communication also involves online social networking. Things like TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. There are so many different ways that we can communicate with other people, and it makes it so much easier to stay in touch with family and friends. I know that I use Facebook a lot to stay in touch with my family in the Netherlands, my family in England, my friends in New Zealand, my friends in Japan. So it is a great tool that we have. Social media can also help us gather information or find out new information. If you're shy or you're an introvert, social media is a great way to communicate with others. And it really can strengthen the bonds that we have with other people. However, we need to remember that social media can also be a trap. We can wind up spending hours and hours of our valuable time on social media. Also, we have to be aware of what we are posting, because if we post something that is rude or it is racist or discriminatory, or even something that shows us in a very negative manner, this can actually prevent us from getting jobs in the future because employers do check social media posts. Now, having a social life when we're in college is incredibly important. Having a social life allows us time to de-stress. It allows us to build bonds. But we have to remember that we're in college for a reason. So we need to balance our social life and schoolwork. So you want to keep working on your time management skills. There's nothing wrong with saying, I want to go on Facebook, but give yourself a time limit. You want to keep working on your studying skills as well. And you also want to avoid procrastination, and you want to try to avoid temptation. One of the things with Facebook is you will get news feeds coming up. Or on Instagram, you may see new posts that people have put up. And it can become a rabbit hole that you fall down. So you want to make sure that if you are going on social media during study time, that you set a timer and don't allow yourself to go past that. You can also make studying a social experience by getting together in groups and studying in groups. If you're doing an online course, you can put together a Zoom study group, for example. But you also need to make sure that your social life does not affect your studies. So there are times that you're going to have to be firm with family and friends and say, I'm sorry, I don't have time right now, I have to study. And finally, if you are having difficulty juggling the two, and you're having difficulty with time management skills, the counseling services at Conestoga College can help you with this. So all you need to do is set up an appointment. Now, when we are socializing, there are times that we may run into problems. This could be with family, it could be with new friends, it could be with professors, it could be with any number of people. So when we want to manage the conflict and we want to resolve the conflict, there are a few things to remember. The first one, of course, is to respect the opinions and the behaviors of other people. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, whether we agree with it or not. And one of the easiest ways to avoid conflict is just to be open-minded. Listen to what the other person has to say. You don't have to agree with it, but listen and think about it. The next thing, of course, is to be calm as you are having a discussion. If you need some time, just give yourself a little bit of time away from the other person. In the moment, you can also practice some of the meditation techniques that we have discussed. When you're doing group work or you're involved in a club or co-curricular activity, you may also find that you're having difficulty with other people. So you need to recognize that compromising is not necessarily a bad thing. So the way we want to do something may not be agreeable with other group members. So we want to try to come up with a compromise. And again, it's very important to listen. Listening can open our minds to what other people have to say. And when you're trying to resolve a conflict, it's important to use I statements instead of you statements. So for example, you can say, I have heard what you have said, and I believe that there is a better way or a different way we can do something, instead of saying, you always have to have your way. As soon as we make a you statement, the other person becomes more defensive and may possibly be unwilling to change their mind. So remember, put the context into I, not you. And of course, work together to find solutions to problems. One of the things that you may find is that you wind up with roommates while you were in college. And living with other people can be very difficult because we come from different backgrounds. Our family values may be different, our cultural values may be different. So there are a few issues that may arise, and here are some ways that you can avoid those. So the first one is to anticipate problems before they happen. So sit down with your roommates and set some ground rules. If you decide that you're going to share groceries, for example, who is going to be in charge of restocking frequently used items? Who is going to let everyone else know that something has been used up? You might also want to set ground rules for the amount of time that people take baths or showers, or when they take them. But you want to anticipate problems. But if problems do arise, you want to make sure that you deal with them as quickly as possible. Ignoring them will not work, and the problem will just get worse. And again, patience, flexibility, and a willingness to compromise are key. Also, if you are having a lot of difficulties with your roommate, try to get out. Go for walks. Go to a local coffee shop. Go out with and meet friends. But get away more. Now, if you're in residence, there are residential advisors or supervisors, so get help from them. If you are renting, you want to make sure that you have the flexibility to move. Unfortunately, a lot of places are now on a 1-year lease, so that flexibility is not necessarily there. But try to make sure you have a backup plan should anything happen. The next item that I want to deal with is harassment. And harassment in the textbook is defined as behavior that is intended to disturb or threaten another person in some way, often psychologically. Typically, the person or people doing the harassment target their victims because of the difference in race, ethnicity, nationality, sex, age, sexual orientation, or disability. And acts of harassment can be verbal, physical, psychological, or any other thing. And of course, there is also sexual harassment. And unfortunately, harassment does occur. But if it does occur, you want to make sure that you report this harassment. So the first thing to do is, if you experience harassment, take note of it. Write it down. What time did it occur? Where did it occur? Who was involved? Were there any witnesses? This record can greatly help, especially if the harassment continues over a period of time. Don't expect that harassment is always going to happen, but do anticipate there will be times where you are harassed. So what do you do when you are harassed? If someone is attacking you psychologically, verbally, physically, because you are different, the first thing to remember is that all types of harassment are illegal. And you can easily ask the person to stop. However, if you feel threatened, don't ask the person to stop. Try to get away and document the incident. If the harassment occurs while you are at the college, report the harassment to security. But if you're not comfortable dealing with security, speak to a professor that you trust or a coordinator, or speak to someone in counseling services. But remember, harassment is not acceptable in any form. When you are in college, you're going to find that you change. And this change is due to the new ideas that you're being exposed to, the new people you're being exposed to, the new culture of college, and for many of you, the new culture of Canada. And unfortunately, as you are changing, your family is changing in other ways, but they don't expect you to change. So this can cause problems. And understand that your family may not change their attitudes towards you as quickly as you yourself are changing. But it is important to stay in touch with your family so that they are at least aware of the things that are happening while you are going to school. You also want to listen closely to your family. What are they saying to you? And remember that time will help people understand how you are changing. And as long as you stay active in family relationships, things should work out okay. But do know you are going to change. Now, we earlier talked about reasons for harassment, and this is reflected in the topic of diversity. And diversity can be visible or invisible. So, for example, there's diversity of race. So I myself am a Caucasian, but my ethnicity is Dutch and English. My mother was born in the Netherlands. My father was born in Canada, but his great-grandparents immigrated from England. So my ethnicity is, I believe, Canadian. But I have a background of Dutch and British in me. So you can't necessarily see ethnicity. If you are Asian, for example, it can be very hard to tell if you are Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, Japanese. All of these races look similar. We have people who are black. We can't tell by looking at people who are black where they are from or what their ethnicity is. So that is an invisible diversity. Culture is also often invisible. Education is invisible. Socioeconomic background is, are we lower class, middle class, upper class? And again, this can be invisible. Gender tends to be more visible. We have male and female. But in North America, we also recognize that some people are transgender. So just by looking at them, we can't tell if they are male or female. Age is often a visible aspect of diversity, but again, we can't tell what someone's specific age is. Diversity of sexual orientation is another topic that in North America we tend to be a little more accepting of than other countries. Religion as well is another issue of diversity, and it is often an invisible aspect of diversity. Unless someone is wearing religious adornments, we really don't know what religion they are. Political views are also invisible. Physical ability can be visible or invisible. Someone may be in a wheelchair, or someone may be walking, but we don't know what their physical abilities are. Also, extracurricular abilities are an aspect of diversity. So is someone able to play sports really well? Is someone a good artist? Is someone else a good photographer? Does someone else excel at doing Sudoku? Again, this is an invisible aspect of diversity. But at college, you're going to be exposed to a great deal of diversity. Especially in North America, we have people from all over the world. So there are many aspects of diversity that we are exposed to. But there are benefits of diversity. The biggest benefit of diversity is that studies have shown that the more diverse a group is, the better their creativity is, because people are bringing different ideas with them. Other things that are benefits are the experience at college prepares you for the work world, because again, our workforces are very diverse. You also learn better in a diverse environment because there are different types of questions. People have different types of ideas. And then experiencing diversity is also good because if you are a minority, you realize there are other people who are like you. If you are the majority, it's good learning that people are different. Exposure to diversity also helps end discrimination and makes us better students and better citizens. And being exposed to diversity also helps us become more aware of who we are and what we value and what we think is important. There are different ways that you can experience diversity, but the first is to acknowledge that you are a unique person and that your values and your ideas and your culture are unique to you. But you also want to consider what your own stereotypes are of other people. So, for example, do you have a certain stereotype about what people from India are like, or people from the Middle East, or people from Europe? One of the things that I often hear from people is that North Americans are very informal. This is an overestimation of what our culture is like. So you want to be aware of what some of your stereotypes are. And it's important to pay attention to the differences in people and respect those differences. And you want to avoid generalizing to individuals. So for example, one of the things that people said to me when I lived in Japan and I traveled was that Japanese people only eat rice. Well, that's not really true. There are some Japanese people who only eat rice with meals, but there are other people who eat pasta or bread. So individuals are different. You also want to be culturally sensitive in your communication. Try to avoid terminology that is offensive to other people. Being involved on campus can also help increase your cultural awareness because you're being exposed to more people. You also want to take the initiative in social interactions. So get to know people, talk to people, ask them questions, and listen to their answer. And then work through any conflicts as well. So you want to remember, you need to keep an open mind. It is important as we are exposed to this diversity that we understand that there is prejudice and there is hate. And we will experience that at some point. So it is important that we stand up against prejudice and hatred. The first thing we can do is decide that this is important. We can't allow prejudice and hatred to continue. You also want to talk to others. If you have experienced prejudice or hatred, let other people know what happened and why and things that were said. The more people are aware of what happens, the better off we are at being able to combat it. And again, you want to report any incidences that happen to you or that you observe. And support people who are working to change the discrimination and the hatred that happens in our society. And celebrate diversity. Understand that it is something that is very beneficial. Now, part of being in college and enjoying the social life is participating in campus groups. If you are interested in joining clubs or helping with orientation or doing activities on campus, go to the Conestoga Student Inc. website, because that website gives information about when events are happening, what clubs are available, and a lot of other information about the college. So when you're looking at joining activities, remember that organized groups or activities can help you adjust to college better and can help you adjust to life in Canada faster. And you get to see what society is like because you're exposed to diversity. Organized groups and activities can also help you learn new skills. And they're fun and they're a great way to stay healthy and to relieve stress, especially if you're looking at intramural activities, such as playing basketball with friends or playing indoor soccer or playing badminton. So how do you find the clubs and activities? Again, look at the college website. When you're on campus, look for information about club fairs or open houses. Look for the notices on bulletin boards. Go to the CSI office or go online to the CSI homepage. You can also participate in student government. There are elections every year in February or March for student government, so pay attention to that. You can also volunteer for orientation, and orientation happens 3 times a year at the beginning of the semester, just before classes start. And finally, you can always organize a group yourself and create a new club or activity. Especially if you have expertise in a certain area, other people will enjoy learning from you. And you can also learn from other people. So, what are our chapter takeaways? Remember that an active social life and social interaction with a variety of people helps you maintain health and wellness, and it can also help with your academic success. Also, remember that diversity is something to be celebrated. But in order to be able to celebrate that diversity, we need to be able to effectively communicate with other people. Online social networks can also help us keep in touch with people, and it can help with our well-being. Time management and study skills will help you balance school and social life. And that also diversity on campus benefits all students. And respect others regardless of the diverse issues that may separate us. And challenge your own stereotypes. So what do you believe about other people? Challenge those. What have you observed? And you should be the one in charge of broadening your social world. So you want to take advantage of on-campus activities. And remember that those on-campus activities can also help you reduce stress, and they can help you develop social, intellectual, and technical skills that can help you in the future. So I hope this video has helped you understand Chapter 9, and good luck